Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and I'd like to welcome you to the lecture on the requirements for the student paper for LIS590MGL, Project Management for LIS in the summer of 2016. So on your screen, you should be seeing the document that I've placed on the weekly schedule under requirements for the student paper. And what I want to do here is to walk you through that document and begin the discussion, which will be continuing in class. Ideally, in teaching, I would like students to have the opportunity to practice whatever we're learning. Okay? And if we are going to do that with project management, we would need a much longer semester, okay? And then we would need some kind of project to do. And we don't really have the luxury of either of those two things. And so since we're doing a shorter semester, we're doing what I consider to be the next best thing, which is let's take a look at a real project that is of interest to us. This is a project that ideally would be a project that we would expect that we would do in our work life. Ideally, I'd like you to choose a project that's like either the first project that you'd like to do, or if you've already done a project, the next one that you'd like to manage, or maybe even the project you would eventually like to manage, okay? But it's a project of interest to you. It's a real project, and it relates to your expectations for the future, okay? It should be a project that is either currently ongoing, perhaps one that's about to start, one that maybe the project manager has planned, okay? It's in the very early planning stages or the very early execution stages. It doesn't have to be done yet, but it can't be just an idea, because we want to know what they're doing in their planning at a minimum. Or if it's already done, it should have been completed in the last year. Okay? This should also be a project that you're not the manager of, or you weren't the manager of. Okay? I don't want a first-hand account. Okay? I want you to get an account from another project manager. So even if you consider yourself a project manager already, now this is the opportunity to go talk to another one, okay? So those are the general parameters of what we're looking at, okay? So that's the subject of the paper, okay? The focus of the paper is really going to be twofold. I want you to focus half of the paper on reporting back on what you learned from the project manager who you interviewed. Okay? And I'd like you to spend the other half of the paper talking about what you would expect to do on your project. The next one, the first one. Okay? Now, ideally, these two projects are going to be pretty similar, but they could be different, right? So it could be that the only project that you can find is one that you have close in hand, and the one that you would expect to do would be different. Okay, you can write them up as accurately as you possibly can. Now, why are we taking the approach that we're taking? Well, we're going to be learning about a whole slew of tools and techniques. And it would have to be a pretty big project for all of them to be appropriate and applicable to your particular project. Okay, what we're learning is, what are all the things that go kind of in the tool bag of the project manager, okay? Does the project manager take all those tools and techniques out of the bag for every project? No, probably not. Like, like any other kind of a craft person, they pick out the tools that are most applicable for the job at hand, okay? So I want you to begin to start thinking about which of these things are going to be appropriate to use on the first of your projects, or the next of your projects, again, if you've already done a project, okay? And there's nothing quite like this. One, I want you to talk to a real person about a real project, get real feedback about how they felt. Now, this could be a person who is very experienced in formal approaches to project management, very friendly to the approach that is taken in our textbook and in our course, or it could be a person who's not, okay? I just want you to talk to a real person and get their real point of view, all right? With you, I'd like you to be thinking about what's right for you in the project that you're expecting to be doing. Because when you get a project to do, everybody's going to be saying, go, 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 go. They're not going to say, well, why don't you take time and think about how you're going to manage the project. And then when you have your ideas, come and speak to me. No, they're much more likely to say, no, we were supposed to start this project half a year ago. You've got to push hard. I don't know if we have time to do all these formal project management things, blah, blah, blah. So it's going to be important for you to have a point of view about what's important for you, okay? This paper is your chance to develop that such that when they put you in the game and say, this is your project, you already have a point of view. You don't have to sit around and start thinking, well, I might try this or I might try that. You've already thought about it, okay? You might have to refresh your memory by rereading your paper, but you've got a point of view and you're not going to be caught short. So that's what I'm trying to get done here. So in the first part of your paper, you're going to be doing a project manager report. That's going to be a report back on what you found out from your manager. And we're going to want to know what choices that they made for formal tools and techniques on the project, what they chose and why, what they decided against and why. How do they feel about the choices that they made? Would they make them any differently? What level of success has the project achieved in terms of scope, time, cost, and quality? Have the tools and techniques had an impact on scope, time, cost, and quality? I've got some more questions here, but you get the idea. Okay. I don't want this to be a critical review of a project. All right. You guys are beginners. All right. We're going to have to give our project manager who we interview the credit for having been in the trenches. Okay. So we just want to know their point of view. Okay. We want to know what they used, how they feel about it, how it went. But we don't have to say that they made a mistake or they did this right or whatever. We just want the facts. Okay. Again, the second part of your paper is going to be called Student Insights. It will be a discussion of how you make choices either the same or differently should you be assigned a project of similar character and dimensions to be carried out, and what kind of organization you're going to be working. So how might what you do be different than the project manager who you interviewed? Well, maybe you're aware of more tools and techniques because you've taken this course and they never had formal training in project management. Maybe you're more comfortable with a tool or a technique than they would be, or less, just because of you being who you are and they being who they are. Maybe the organizational circumstances that you're expecting for you are different than what the project manager who you interviewed are. Okay? Maybe you are more convinced about the power of formal project management, or less convinced than the manager was. Okay? So I really want to know your point of view, your approach to a project that you're going to do. Now, in the next of the sections, I talk about the methodology. This, when you think of it in the beginning, seems kind of daunting, because we're going to be interviewing a project manager. At the same time, we're learning about this stuff. So how are we going to do that? Okay. How are we going to have time enough to get the interview in and get our paper written and learn about this stuff all at the same time? And I think, in my mind, you have to break it into 3 parts. Part 1 is finding a project and a project manager to work with. Okay. And you can do that at the same time that you're learning about all these things. There's no conflict there. Okay. The next thing is that you probably need to talk to the project manager before you know all the material that's in the course. Okay. So it's probably true. I recommend that you talk to the project manager twice. The first time is kind of, you're going to be using more open-ended questions, right? Now, you can use the outline from our textbook as kind of a checklist of the things that you want to know about. But given that you haven't learned about all of them, this is probably the opportunity to ask your interviewee fairly open-ended questions about the approach they took, the tools and the techniques that they liked, the results, all that kind of stuff. As we get to the end of the course, I think you're going to want some kind of follow-up interview. Now, does that have to be in person? Well, no. In fact, the original interview could even be not in person. It could be on the phone. Okay? People have tried to do these via email, and I think they've been awkward. But if you can do a good job via email, I guess you could try it. But ideally, they should be at least via phone. But the follow-up interview gives you the opportunity to really ask about all the details that weren't quite clear the first time that you talked, either because it's hard to get all the details from somebody the first time you interview them, or because you were still learning all this stuff and you might not have understood all the tools or the techniques or the terminology. By the time that you're about ready to button up your paper, you should pretty well know all these things. A real good opportunity to come back and ask more closed-ended kind of questions like this. When I was talking to you, I remember that you said such and such, but I wasn't sure if you meant that you used technique A or technique B. Which did you use? Or some third one? Okay? So this gives you the opportunity to really refine the research that you're doing. Okay? So this should be able to do it. All right? 2 interviews, 1 primary, 1 follow-up, and then, of course, the work at the beginning to identify the project manager, sign the project manager up. Those things all, those are things you can begin to work on tomorrow, for that matter. Okay? The next section here has to do with the organization. I ask you to organize your report in the way that I've shown here in the requirements. There should be 2 sections, project manager report and student insights. And each of them should have 2 subparts, project description and the usage of formal project management tools and techniques. The first one is going to be what you learned from the project manager who you interviewed. The second one is going to be your vision and insights for the next project that you're going to do. I want you to follow the outline and include the headings in bold type. This gives me the opportunity to find what you said and give you full credit for it. And I've organized the form with which I send my feedback in a way that it relies on your paper being in this format and outline. Confidentiality. This is research with a small r, okay? It's research in that you're going out, you're finding out things you don't already know, and you're reporting back on it, okay? This is not research in the sense that is covered by the university institutional review board or IRB. Okay, so the person who you're talking to is not a subject. They're not a human subject. They're a colleague who you're conferring with, right? However, you want to take the kind of care that you might take if you were doing formal research that, was under the jurisdiction of a university institutional review board. Okay, we probably don't want to identify the people who we talk to by name or by title. We probably don't want to. We don't want to disclose anything that could be confidential, anything that people could find personally hurtful, okay? And I have a sentence here at the bottom in terms of what we're going to write. For instance, you don't want to write that the people on the project were slugs and that they didn't put in a decent day of work during the whole project. Instead, even if that's what the project manager said to you, you're going to want to write, the project manager had concerns about the productivity of the project team that were never fully resolved. Okay? So this is the kind of document that, even should it fall into the hands of the enemy or our friends, isn't going to insult anybody. It isn't going to call their judgment into question. Okay? This is going to be a friendly and informative document, okay? And in that sense, it shouldn't have things in it that would be harmful to the people who you are interviewing, should they read it, or should their competitors have an opportunity to read it. Format, typewritten single space, follows the outline above. You don't have to use formal citation. Especially if you're talking about things that are in the Schwalbe book or things that happen to be in the PMI body of knowledge, the PMBOK. On the other hand, if you mention a famous theory or approach, for instance, fishbone diagrams, please attribute the theory or approach to its originator. In the case of fishbone diagrams, that would be Ishikawa. Okay, apart from that, you don't need footnotes. Your paper should be in Adobe PDF format. It makes it a whole lot easier for me to read and grade. The length, approximately 6 to 8 pages of single-space text. So half on the project that you learned about from the project manager, half on the one that you anticipate that you're going to do. Sharing and commenting within groups. I'm going to put together a forum that you should be able to use to share your work with your group. This will be a forum that everybody in the class can see all the entries for all the groups. So again, only share things that are appropriate to share. Okay. And that's where you'll be able to show people your work and get some comments back, some value added there, I'm hoping. And I see here the paper is due by Sunday, August 9th. That's an old date. Okay, so if you look on the schedule, I'm going to have to fix this and republish it, but the schedule says in week 8. Let me just take a look. It says that the paper is due at 11:55 p.m. on Wednesday, August 3rd. And that's in order to meet the grading deadline for this semester. That apparently related to the grading deadline last year. And what I'd like you to do is to name the file that you submit in a certain way, because I like them to sort into alphabetical order because I grade them in alphabetical order. So I gave you an example of the file naming scheme that I'd like you to use, and an example of what a file name would be for the paper I would submit. So we're going to talk about this a lot in class. I just wanted to get all the lecture aspects out of the way, get you thinking about a project, and get the discussion started. So I look forward to that. And for now, I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.